Why I prefer Asian girls. This is something that has popped up a multitude of times in the comments. A guy called Spoz actually said that he ran into some guys in Sydney and they were like, oh, he only uploads Asian girls, so it's not counted. And I just got another comment from one guy saying, why don't you have any infields with white Australian girls? And these are legitimate criticisms. They actually are legitimate criticisms. I'm not going to try and step around them in any way, shape, or form. I'm not here to um, try to make up some false reasons why, as a white guy, it wouldn't be necessarily easier for me to pick up Asian girls. Uh, people would argue that it is easier to pick up Asian girls, and I'm going to address that. I'm going to try to address that just off the cuff and try to formulate my thoughts why and try to explain to you guys why, because I do have legitimate reasons why I prefer Asian girls. Guys that prefer Asian girls do have legitimate reasons, and it's not always because they have poor game or they have poor abilities with women. It's not always because they can't get white girls. It's because they prefer not to. So that's going to be up to you guys to decide. If you believe that I just don't have the skills to pick up white girls, and that's why I'm doing it. It's because it's necessity. It's out of necessity. It's not out of want. It's because I don't have the skill. That's going to be up to you as an individual to decide. I'm going to make a quick little video talking about that today, and address the comment that I received. But before we kick it off, I'm Dave, and this channel is dedicated to giving you no BS novel dating advice for the modern man. Top link in the description. You can get some. Check out the website, and you can sign up to do some cold approach coaching with myself, where I teach you how to cold approach girls, day game, night game, you name it. And the reason why I choose that is because it is the dominant strategy. Online game isn't as effective in a first world country. I'm in a first world country. I don't live in Asia. Never lived in Asia. And the longest I've ever been away from Sydney, Australia, is about 3 to 4 weeks maximum at a time in my entire life. So, all right, now, why do I prefer Asian girls? So I guess I got to start from the very beginning. Myself, I started out in a beachside suburb. I did start out in the ghetto. And I started out in a place called Maroubra. You can watch the documentary that Russell Crowe, the famous actor, created called Bra Boys. That's the place that I initially started out with. Single mother, ended up moving to another beachside suburb full of beach babes, which were all white beach babes. And up until around 20 to 25-ish, maybe 23 approximately, I'd mainly only dated white girls. Now, growing up on the beach, that's all you really got to choose from is white Australian girls. There is another thing that I'd like to put out there is that my mum has two sisters. Those two sisters both one had one daughter, the other one had two daughters. I also have a sister, and my grandmother was a single mother as well. So growing up, I was surrounded by grandmother, two aunties and a mother, a sister, and three cousins. Just generational, just surrounded by estrogen. They were all white girls. They weren't Asian girls. They were white Australian girls. So I was more comfortable talking to white Australian. Well, growing up, there was nothing but white people around me, really, in these ghettos. and the beachside suburb that I ended up growing up in. So for me, going to primary school and high school, and when I left high school, I was always far more comfortable around women, white women. And so, from my point of view, my reality here, uh, it was just far more comfortable. I never had that reality where I felt that white girls were difficult at all. And going to high school, growing up surrounded by women in the family, I found it a lot more easier to make friends with girls in high school. So I ended up losing my virginity early. I ended up sleeping with many girls, and I found myself locking many girls in high school into the friend zone more than anything. Later on, I went to my 10-year reunion not long after, and I remember speaking to one girl, and we are talking about how I used to walk home after school with her, and she told me that she had a crush on me the entire time. But she was like a mid-range sort of girl. She wasn't in like the cool girls category. She was maybe mid-range, hanging out with a group of girls that they're on the peripheral of the hot chicks. Um, I was spending most of my time flirting with the hot chicks, trying to sleep with the hot girls, and I'd quite often have a lot of success with quite a lot of the hot girls in high school. And then that confidence led into 18, 19, hitting the clubs. So for me, from my reality, if you talk about the pickup industry, a lot of the guys, they never had success in high school or anything like that. They struggled, and they have this evolution story. So in their reality, they come from this background of scarcity, and that alters their reality and how they see the world. And a lot of the pickup community, especially in the West, is partially dominated by immigrants that come from other countries, from other racial backgrounds. So they often see white girls as the pinnacle. But you also got to understand that everyone has different realities. Different people have different realities. And in my reality, they're not difficult at all. Talking to them is not difficult at all. And when you're surrounded by women growing up, I didn't have any brothers growing up. I didn't get in because my parents divorced. My mum remarried and ended up having another daughter. And my dad went off and had two sons. So I didn't get really in contact with them until my late 20s. But growing up surrounded by white Australian women, talking to women was easy for me. It wasn't an issue. And so I need to show empathy for the guys in the comments and not tell them that they're idiots all the time, which is my first reaction, by trying to explain that my reality is different for them, and I'm hoping that they can understand that I understand their reality. I understand that if you're an immigrant and you come to Australia and the white Australian girls see you as lower class, you have less status, then you have trouble with the white Australian girls. I totally understand that. Maybe you got some background, Asia, India, you're from the Middle East, or you're from South America even. They'll see you as lower class, and that's the white Australians and how they will treat you. But the thing is, from my point of view, they are technically the easiest. They're the ones that when I speak to them, they open up immediately. I'm more likely if I go down to the shops to have a white girl ask me if I'm okay, and if I'm finding, is there anything that I can help you with, then if I'm in an Asian neighborhood, the Asian girl's less likely to ask me if I'm okay or even talk to me at all. So it's easier to open and have a conversation with a white girl, and they feel a lot more comfortable with myself. So now we've got that part of it out of the way. Okay, then we need to go into other aspects of this. I do have some friends that are tall, jacked, good-looking guys that have a lot of options out there, and they prefer Asian girls as well. Keep in mind, the area that I'm in is a factor. Immigration, there's 25 million Australians. It's only a small little island that is separated from everything else. And on our doorstep is Asian country on top of Asian country on top of Asian country. It's about a 12-hour flight to the next Western country away from Australia. And New Zealand's not counted, by the way. So, next Western country. Well, there's India, maybe further than 12 hours. It could be 40 hours. I don't know, it's a long 20 hours maybe to Eastern Europe. That's how far away I am. And most of the immigration that comes to Australia is Asian. So if I go for a walk through Sydney CBD and film it, you will notice that 99% are all Asian. Okay? So you also need to take into account the fact that there's there's more options when it comes to Asian girls as well. That also plays into that is also a factor that you need to take into account. If you're on an island and there's only one Asian girl, you can't complain that you're not picking up white girls because there's just none there. There are a lot in Australia, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of white girls there, but that does play a factor as well. The difference between an Asian girl and a white Australian girl is quite obvious once you've dated both of them. White Australian girls are more likely to feel privileged, and a lot of the immigrants that will be leaving those comments, you can understand this as well, because they're going to look down on you because you're an immigrant to Australia. They're going to think that you're lower class, and you're going to have trouble dating them for that very reason. Even though their job is some sort of dodgy customer service role and they couldn't complete their degree, or they just scraped through their degree and mummy and daddy paid for it, and you're an immigrant with a PhD from India or Asia, you're 10 times more intelligent than them, you're running your own business, you've got your life in order, you've got so many things going for you, but still this bogan, backwards Australian girl won't date you and she still looks down on you. This is just a factor of how it is. They're naive, they're not very self-aware, they don't believe in competency, they just believe in this cronyism sort of society. They're very woke because they're manipulated by Google, which is American. So all we do over here is we get fed and brainwashed by American propaganda, the woke stuff that comes in, even though we are literally on the other side of the world. If you drill the hole through New York or something, you might pop out near Sydney. That's how far away we are. Like, seriously, we're that far away. Just to look at the map and get an understanding of where I live. It's very woke here. Recently, some news articles have come out saying that nightclubs in Sydney, the security is going to enforce staring. So you've had a few drinks in the nightclub, okay, and you're scared to approach, and you're a wallflower, and you're having a drink. You're like, okay, girl, and the other side of the dance floor. Okay, I'm getting ready, and you're looking at her. She doesn't like you staring at her. She contacts the security and kicks you out for staring. It's a real thing. I made a video on it. It's like last week. That's a real thing. Also, you need to take into account that Australia is a totalitarian dictatorship now. If you have a look at what they do for the lockdowns, disgusting the way they treated us here. My grandmother died at home alone because I couldn't visit her during the lockdowns. My brother, who was dealing with a whole bunch of things during the lockdowns, he ended up dying during the lockdowns. He had a drug overdose, probably through boredom and a multitude of other things, but the lockdowns were the reason for it. Australia is a dictatorship, as Rollo Tomassi says, gynocentrism, where it's all ruled by women, and that's what Australia is. It's ruled by women. And so a lot of that power goes to the white Australian women. They're not traditional women that respect men or respect human rights or care about you in any way. A lot of them are very mean and nasty people. Now, they do respect tall, jacked, good-looking guys, but I'm a 5'8" guy in my 40s who's also disabled and not a wealthy millionaire. So I need to, although that's the thing, like with a lot of Aussie girls, I can punch up quite well and sleep with a lot of white girls quite easy. But it's not necessarily enjoyable because the majority of Australian girls have huge body counts, and that's why I made that video, the vagina size video, where I did interviews. This is a real factor in Australia, vagina size. If a girl has a large body count, sometimes you watch that interview. It's on this channel. So Australian girls are more likely to be less ambitious, more likely to just want to sleep around. They're more likely to drink a lot. So I'm sure you've heard about Australian girls with alcoholism. They're very bogan. They're bogan. We call it bogan. It's kind of like white trash in the United States. They're not desirable wives. Almost none of the women in my family, if one of my friends was going to marry one of the girls in my family, I would say, don't marry her because she's going to ruin your life. She's literally lazy, dumb. She doesn't know how to do anything. She's going to ruin your life. That's seriously how I would warn a friend about women in my family. And it's hard to find a good Australian girl. While simultaneously, those same girls are constantly complaining that life isn't easy enough for them and trying to get more and more freebies. On the other hand, we have a lot of Asian girls who are coming from middle to upper class families in Asia that's funding their trips to Australia. So they're generally a little bit more sophisticated, even though they might be coming from developing countries. They're coming to get educated. They're getting their degrees before they even get citizenship or permanent residency. They come here and they hit the ground running. They work. They understand what it takes to earn $1, whereas Australian girls don't. So they're more likely to respect your hard work and your job and you and what you're achieving in life, whereas an Australian girl is not. The white girls that are in Australia, you do have a few options when it comes to Eastern European girls. I have an extraordinary strike rate with European girls in Australia. My approach to strike rate is really high. I will also say that one of my students recently, he believed the hype around Asian girls. He preferred to approach Asian girls. And majority, because we started out in the city and his suburb as well, the majority of girls were just Asian. So what I did was to break him out of this delusion that he had, because it's a falsehood, it's not real. I took him to a beachside suburb full of bullshit, hot, beautiful Aussie girls. And we're only there for one day. We only it was maybe half a day. We didn't even do a real big session, and the flow was quite low. There wasn't a large amount of volume either. So he wasn't able to get a lot of volume in. And out of that small amount of volume, in half of a day, traveling over an hour and a half out of the city to go to this beachside suburb full of hot Aussie babes, he's now dating one of those girls. And he only did a couple of approaches. And then I said to him, like, so in your reality, what is easier? Is it easier to just approach 100 Asian girls, or is it easier to do literally 5 approaches in an area with hot babes? Now, these hot babes, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that he dates this one that he's seeing now full time, but it was more of a reality check for him. And he also got another date with a girl that was more in his age range, that was really, really sophisticated and well dressed as well, who was another white girl. So the facts don't exactly match up, but keep in mind he's a white Australian guy or white New Zealand guy, same sort of thing. So he would have had an advantage with white girls. We need to take that into account when we're looking at. So myself, the idea that they are easier, you're going to have to make that decision for yourself. I can't break your reality with facts if your reality doesn't allow you to change your mind, and that's perfectly okay. That's entirely up to you. And I would like to know if the guys that leave that comment, if they get evidence that I can get white girls, which if you look at my channel, I've got multitude of interviews where I've done interviews at night, which is actually quite a safe thing to do. I can do interviews and had makeouts and stuff with lots of hot girls, and I've got quite a bit of evidence of myself with some white girls on this channel as it is. Obviously, that's not enough. They're almost like evidence heroin junkies. They need, the more evidence you give, the more evidence they need. And I'd like to know, that's what I was getting at before, is if you provide enough evidence, do they sign up to coaching or not? Because that's the purpose of this in the first place. I'm not doing this as an ego trip. This is to get clients to coach them. If you don't think that my coaching is good enough, or you don't think that I know what I'm doing, even though I've already provided more evidence on this tiny little channel than all of the biggest pickup companies in Australia. I had a look at them. They're all just talking head videos, or they hire women. It's like fish trying to teach you how to fish. It's not counted. Or they just focus on table service and wearing a suit, and they try to dress you up and make you play the status game. There's no game involved in any of these things. So when you connect my personal experience and my preferences for the type of girls that I would prefer to sleep with and date, a girl with a lower body count is generally preferable. So that rules out a lot of Aussie girls. A girl that is a bit more traditional and understands that work matters. A girl that is respects men. Australian women just don't respect men. They hate men. They treat men like shit. It's difficult to find an Aussie girl that respects men. I remember growing up, and one of my aunties had 2 dogs. One dog was female and the other dog was male. She treated the male dog like shit. She hated the male dog. She said, "Oh, it's violent, it's this, it's that." It's like, hang on, they're both dogs. They're both the same breed, same thing. There's no real difference between them. It's just that they treated the male dog poorly, and this is the Rollo Tomassi gynocentrism type of story here. Asian girls just respect men a little bit more. Asia's full of male-dominated societies. This is why Asia's winning and the West is collapsing. So I prefer to be with a girl that respects men, a girl that has a lower body count, a girl that's a little bit more traditional. Even if I'm just sleeping with her, lower body count does matter, even if it's just the one-night stand, even if it is just a regular. Even if you're not looking for a long-term relationship, a more traditional girl with a lower body count is usually preferable in many ways. I also prefer intelligent women. Intelligent women are a little bit more, when they if they're traditional and they've got a low body count, they're usually more adventurous, believe it or not. But I click better with intelligent girls. Intelligent girls are more likely to come from overseas. Western society is becoming less and less intelligent. Every second, there's another IQ point disappearing from society. That's the only reason why I got my IQ test in the first place, is because everyone was calling me an idiot. I felt like I was stupid because most people, I didn't agree with them. The society just, I was like, why don't I understand society? I got an IQ test. I realized that, I'm not the idiot. They're the idiot, and they're just so stupid that they don't understand that they are the stupid people. So on average, you're having girls that get scholarships and are more intelligent coming to Australia from Asia. Then we go into another aspect of this as well, which would be, if I live so far away from South America and Europe, it's harder for me if I don't, in Australia, date more of a bogan Australian girl or a European style girl. It's harder to find them. Now, if I was an American coach in my 40s, I think I'd probably get a lot more kudos, a lot more respect for battling away like this. But as an American, as an Australian, I don't get any favors in the Google algorithm. If anything, I get penalized because I'm not American. Google's an American company, it favors Americans. Common sense, right? If I lived in America, I would have almost 350 million people over in the United States. I would have the option of traveling around there and picking out a sweet spot with a lot of American girls. Hell, even when I'm 50, I'll still be able to pick up in the United States. It's coming soon. I'll get over there and I'll prove it to you guys. There's another aspect here, is that if I was in America, I'd be able to do a trip to South America, which a lot of the coaches do. A lot of the coaches, when they first take off and they start their channels up, they will do a trip to South America. Now, there's countries like Colombia and Brazil where it's so easy. All you have to do is swipe right on an app and delivery, just arrive. If I was in England, I could just get in a car and drive for a couple of hours to Eastern Europe, or go to a couple of other different countries. Piece of cake. I'd be able to do weekend trips almost every weekend. But in Australia, it's like, I don't know, 14, 15, 20 hours. It took me almost 24 hours to get to England the first time I went to visit the place. So, just to get a bit of an understanding of how far away I am, if you have a look at the map, there's a massive sea between Australia and the United States and South America, but you have to go through the United States to get there. The closest major countries are Japan and China, and then left, you go a little bit higher up on the left, there's India. All the way on the left, there's Africa. There's no... and sure, then we get to the point where you might be saying, well, why do you have to travel overseas to pick up white girls? It's like, well, I told you that I grew up surrounded by white girls. But then the skeptics probably won't believe that. They'll probably think that I'm just making up lies. The other aspect of it is that in the state that I'm in, and most parts of Australia, as a female-dominated society, it is illegal to film people without their consent. Now, that's why a lot of my videos, it's like I've got consent from them and they're on camera looking at the camera with me. I'm very careful with the videos because it's a law. We got the Surveillance of Devices Act in Australia. So a lot of these videos that I've put up, they know they're being filmed, it's on camera, and they know, that it's going on the internet. Or I do those little trips to Asia. I've done 2 trips since I've been running this channel. Only 2 trips, by the way. I haven't been there very long at all. Two trips in 2 years since I've been coaching. And I can film away. There's no laws against filming in Asia at all. And so it's a safe space. It's a safe space. There's some woke stuff for you guys out there, for me to be able to film. In Australia, you can't necessarily do that. The Me Too sort of environment in Australia is so much worse than anything in the United States. Think about what happened during the lockdowns, people. If you don't think that Australia is worse than the United States or England, it is. It's so much worse. During the lockdowns, we had curfews. They built camps, like concentration camps in Australia. And we all know the whole thing was a scam up until today. So think about what type of a totalitarian dictatorship we have here, and think, would you like to be pumping out a few infields just to make a few fake accounts happy in the comments? No, you wouldn't. And that's why some of the biggest channels in Australia, they don't upload infields. They're just all talking head videos, and they tell lies. They say things like, we love women and I respect women. It's because they know that Australia is a dirty, dirty, male-hating country, dictatorship run by corrupt elites. And this is it's all entwined in this. And so if you want to get some sort of respect in the world, you're going to have to look at the demographics of girls that you date. Then we get to the guys that, in Sydney, there is a lot of ego and competitiveness. I would argue also in Sydney that there's a lot of guys out there that it doesn't matter how much evidence you provide, they will still poke a hole in what you're doing. But the thing is, for you guys in Sydney, I was in your community. You know me. I've been on the streets with a lot of you fuckers. I know how it goes out there, and most of you are fully aware that my game shits all over almost all of you fuckers in the community. You've seen it with your own eyes. You know my game shits all over yours. So don't go talking shit going, oh, he only picks up Asian girls. My game shits all over yours, and you fucking know it. You fucking know it. There are new guys that enter the community in Australia. There's newbies all the time. We have guys that flow in for a summer and they'll be here for 6 months or whatever. They don't know who I am. There'll be guys that don't know the established guys within the within the community that have been gaming for a very long time. But the established guys that have been around for a very long time, I'm well aware of who they are. I'm no newbie that has to focus on Asian girls. Let's just put it that way. I'm no newbie that struggles and I can't put together two words talking to a white girl because they're so difficult to talk to and I get nervous. What a load of fucking bullshit. What a load of fucking bullshit. But this has been a long video. Just addressing some troll accounts that have been asking whether I have any more evidence with white girls. You Bobs and Vagana, I need some more evidence. That's kind of the attitude of some of these guys. They're stuck in their own reality and they need to get coaching with someone like me so I can snap them out of their false limiting beliefs. RSD, I stole that from RSD. Gynocentrism, that's Rollo Tomasi. But yeah, that's a limiting belief. And they're projecting their limiting belief on someone like myself when it's a total falsehood. Do I seem like the type of guy who can't hold up a conversation? No, I can. I can talk to you. I can hold up a conversation with a white girl. They're not scary. I think I can handle it. I think I can handle dating a few white girls. Yeah, this has gone on for too long, this video. It's far too long. It's going to take a long time to upload this one. But if you like this video, made sense to you, If give me a thumbs up. If not, if you disagree, that's fine. You can argue all you want. I won't be able to change your reality. It's like talking to someone who's in a cult. I can't change their reality. The same way, I can't change your reality. I'm not going to try to. Although in the future I plan to do some more trips out of Australia and just let rip. But that's more for me than to prove to a few nerds in the comments. That's because I would like to go to the United States, and I'd like to go pick up in Eastern Europe, and I'd like to check out South America. I've never been to these places. I believe I should be able to slay it over there. I believe that. It'd be interesting to see if I could. So, if you want to learn some cold approach, get some cold approach coaching with myself, check out the website and sign up. I'll see you guys in the next video.